My name is Bellamy. I am 28 years old. And the day I buried my husband was the day I learned that grief is not the only thing that can break your heart. The sky had been gray that morning, heavy and silent, as if the world itself understood what I had lost. 3 apartments and a house by the sea suddenly meant nothing without him. $4 million in estate value felt like dust compared to the warmth of his hand in mine. When the funeral ended and the last guest whispered their condolences, I told myself there was one place left where I would be safe, my parents' home. I drove there still wearing my black dress, the scent of lilies clinging to the fabric. My chest felt hollow but hopeful. I believed I was walking into comfort, into arms that would hold me up when my own strength failed. But the moment I stepped inside, I heard them. Their voices drifted from the living room, low, urgent, calculated. Not the sound of parents grieving with their daughter. The sound of people planning something. "We have to move quickly before she understands anything," my mother whispered. My father replied, his voice steady and cold. "The lawyer said the evaluation will be enough. Once she's declared mentally unfit, the estate can be controlled." My breath stopped. I stood frozen in the hallway, fingers gripping the doorframe so tightly my knuckles turned white. My black heels felt glued to the floor. Mentally unfit? Estate controlled? They were talking about me. "She's always been fragile," my father continued. "After the funeral, she's emotional. No one will question it. It's perfect timing." Perfect timing. My grief became something sharp and electric. My husband had been gone for less than 48 hours, and my parents were already strategizing how to strip me of my autonomy. My sister's hesitant voice cut through the air. "But what if Bellamy fights it?" My mother didn't hesitate. "She won't. She trusts us." Those words hurt more than anything else. "She trusts us." Wanted to burst into the room, to scream, to demand answers. But something held me back. Maybe shock. Maybe instinct. Or maybe the faint echo of my husband's voice in my memory. "Money reveals truths people work very hard to hide," he used to say. At the time, I thought he was being overly cautious. He insisted on documentation, transparency, backups. I had teased him for being paranoid. Now, standing in my childhood home listening to my parents plan my legal erasure, I understood. This wasn't spontaneous. It was prepared. I walked out as quietly as I had entered. They never knew I was there. In my car, my hands trembled so badly I could barely unlock my phone. But I didn't call a friend. I didn't call my sister. I called my husband's attorney. The man my husband had once told me to trust if anything ever felt wrong. When I explained what I had overheard, there was a long pause on the line. Then he said, "Bellamy, your husband anticipated external pressure. You are not unprotected." Within hours, I sat across from him in his office. He opened a folder labeled contingency. Inside were certified copies of financial structures, trust conditions, and something else, a sealed digital archive. "Your husband recorded a formal statement," the attorney said, "in case your legal competence was ever challenged." My heart cracked all over again. Even in death he had thought of me. The archive contained video testimony from him. Calm, composed, direct. He explained his intentions clearly. He detailed the estate's structure and the safeguards he had built into it. There were triggers. If anyone attempted to have me declared mentally unfit without substantial medical evidence, the control of assets would shift into an independent trust overseen by neutral executors. Every move would be documented. Every accuser scrutinized. He had also kept logs, records of subtle financial inquiries from my parents, questions about ownership percentages, comments about my emotional sensitivity. At the time, I had brushed them off. He hadn't. Meanwhile, my parents moved forward with terrifying confidence. They scheduled evaluations with specialists, speaking of me with rehearsed concern. "She's not herself. She's fragile. She can't handle the pressure." I attended every appointment. I answered calmly, clearly, rationally. They expected tears and breakdowns. I gave them composure. The real battle wasn't in the clinics. It was in court. The day of the hearing felt unreal. My parents sat across from me, faces arranged in careful sorrow. My sister avoided my eyes. For a fleeting second, I mourned not just my husband, but the family I thought I had. Their argument leaned heavily on implication. They referenced a brief period years ago when I had sought therapy after a traumatic accident. They painted it as instability, as proof of fragility. Grief, they implied, had tipped me over the edge. Then it was our turn. My attorney stood and introduced the digital archive. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the video began to play. My husband's face appeared on the screen. The silence that followed was absolute. He spoke clearly, explaining his estate plan and his reasons. He detailed his concerns about external financial pressure. He affirmed my competence, my involvement in decisions, my strength. He explained the protective triggers he had put in place. Then came the documentation, financial logs, email records, time-stamped notes revealing patterns of behavior. Subtle but undeniable. The narrative my parents had constructed began to unravel. Confusion flickered across their faces. Then disbelief. Then fear. Because the foundation of their plan, that I was helpless and unaware, had collapsed. When the judge delivered the ruling, it did more than protect the estate. It affirmed my legal competence. It dismissed their petition. It ordered a review of their conduct. I didn't feel triumph. I felt clarity. I walked out of that courtroom changed. Not hardened, but awakened. I had lost my husband. I had lost my illusion of unconditional family loyalty. But I had not lost myself. Betrayal often wears a familiar face. It speaks softly. It calls itself concern. It counts on your trust. But truth, when documented, preserved, protected, becomes armor. My husband once told me that preparation is not paranoia. It is love expressed responsibly. Now I understand. Grief tested me. Deception cornered me. But proof liberated me. And I learned something that day in the hallway of my childhood home. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is strategy. Sometimes it is survival. I am Bellamy. I am 28 years old. And I am not fragile.